Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Living on Rocky Top. I'm Karsten Hoagland.
And I'm Ali LaRosa, and today with us we have Beth Haynes, a former anchor at WIR and alumni of UT.
What's happening?
Thank you.
Yes,
How are
thank
ya?
you for being here.
Let's go Vols. I like the Tennessee top. The hat, I should say.
Yeah,
The
I had to get in the spirit.
The
It's
lid is the
homecoming
cool
week.
kids
Ready
call
for
it.
homecoming week, yeah.
Hey, this brings back a lot of memories. I graduated in '98, and I was on all campus events my junior and senior year, and we helped plan homecoming.
Oh, awesome.
And we were over the homecoming parade, and I was tasked with the challenge of getting John Ward. I had secured Voice of the Vols, John Ward, to be, and I was thinking about this on the way over, either the announcer for the parade or a judge for the parade. But that vivid memory sticks out. I'm kind of walking in front of the architecture building, walking down to meet him, and I have his folder ready, and I was so worried he might not show. So anyway, yeah, it's great. I love being back on campus. It's busy. I think it was class change. I was trying not to hit any student pedestrians.
Bring back memories.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And being here in College of Communications, I've spent a lot of time in this building. So yeah, I guess it was my second home when I was in college.
So what is the communications building and being back on campus? What kind of memories does that bring back to you?
Well, initially walking in, I had a bit of a panic. I was like, oh gosh, do I have my assignment done? Am I ready for that test? Do I have that package finished?
Right.
I think two memories for me. Dr. Sam Swan was just such an asset and mentor for me when I was a student. He has retired since, but I spent a lot of time in his office trying to get guidance and counsel. Is this going to work? Am I going to get a job? This industry's tough. So that sticks out, just conversations with him. Also, our final broadcasting class where we produced, we called it Tennessee Today. I don't know if that's still the name of the news show, weekly news show that's produced.
No, it's called Vol News now.
Vol News,
Yes.
That's a better name. I like that, Vol News. So we would take that every week. I would pair up with another student. We would gather and do research, write, produce, I think a package a week, and then I helped anchor what is now Vol News. So we would come in and tape. So I have vivid memories of that. I have memories of being in one of the edit bays, makeshift edit bays, I will say, because I'm looking at your gear and I'm so impressed. I really wish you could see kind of what I had to work with and learn the craft with. And I do remember checking out one of the cameras and tripods and taking it right here on the lawn my very first time, trying to figure out, okay, how do I get the camera attached to the tripod? And I knew nothing about shooting and editing. And, you know, I really say my internships, I was interned at Channel 10, I interned at Channel 6, and then my first news stations were great training ground. They were small markets, Hopkinsville and Macon, Georgia, but we had big news stories and you hit the ground running. So you learn pretty quickly what not to do and how to do your job properly.
Right.
But I brought back blue video one time. That's all it took, one time. So, and it was a little more rigid. It was hard when I got into news. You know, it was very cutthroat. You had to have really thick skin. You worked long hours, you were gonna work weekends, you were gonna work holidays. I remember sending out tapes back then. Again, I graduated in '98. Can you imagine? Okay, you all are gonna laugh. I remember being a junior in college and being assigned something called an email address, something for the internet. What is this? It was some kind of internal communication form within the university. It was just a fad. Nobody was going to take off.
Right.
Like
the pigeons weren't working that day.
Yeah.
Onto a VHS tape. You would print out your resume. I didn't have a website. Again, we didn't really have the internet. Websites weren't a thing. And you would package it all up, take it to the post office, and literally mail it,
Wow.
snail mail,
Wow.
to news stations. And then you would pray just somebody got it and didn't end up in the trash. So very different. And even finding jobs, that now you just go online.
Right.
You connect or
LinkedIn.
Let me go find my favorite reporter or favorite anchor. Let me just reach out to that person. We never had access like that. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is huge.
Yes.
I think that's a wonderful, wonderful platform, and I think college students should be very active on it just as much as other social platforms. And I know it's a lot. It's hard to manage and keep up and be visible and intentional and relevant.
Right, and you're just humble bragging the whole entire time. You're like, I did this, I did this.
And I'd say that was tough for me. I do not like self-promotion.
I don't either.
I don't. I hate it. And I'm from a different generation too. Younger generations, we would joke in the newsroom, and one of the things I love about a TV newsroom, especially towards the end of my time at Channel 10, just the range in age from 21, 50s, not 50, I'm almost, but it was great. Oh, I learned so much. And I was assigned to be a mentor to some of the younger reporters and anchors. They mentored me just as much. I learned so much about social media, but just the conversations we had. But we would always laugh at the younger staff members in our newsroom, like, is anything private anymore?
Yeah.
Like, really, like, is anything private? And like John Becker and I, we'd always tell him, like, oh, well, it's posted here. It just a different mentality and different generation. But I do think there is a way to stay true to yourself while promoting your work.
Exactly.
And phrasing. And I think if you focus in those terms, not about me, and even you were asking me about news, we were having a conversation just through text about news kind of transitioning into personal brand. I will tell you, my whole news career, the story was not about me. I wasn't a part of the story. I would only do a stand-up if I needed to be demonstrative or add some piece of information that we could not get through sound or video. There's been a big shift, even like the networks now, the celebrity news, and everything's about the on-air person. There's a balance there. I do think there is a way to tell impactful stories. I think one of the biggest, not struggles for me, decisions, one of the hardest decisions I made, I decided to do a series on infertility at WBIR. I decided to do this because I had personally struggled with infertility. When I set out to do this series, I had secured 4 different women who were willing to share their story. I was not going to share my story. Was not.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting across from these women, and they were so brave and just very transparent about their struggles, their journey, and just in the back of my head, you got to tell your story. You got to, but that was so unnatural for me.
Yeah.
And I think it was powerful because I think my story resonated with a lot of people, and I think my story resonated too because I didn't get the happy ending that a lot of people want. And I have people call and will reach out to me just for that. So I think there are times, I think there are moments that it can be informative, and I think, in the news world and my time at WBIR, we have such a unique connection with people. People feel like they know you. Recently, Abby Ham talked about her having a colonoscopy for the first time. Heather, the mammogram. And so I think that's part of raising awareness and being a community advocate and really reaching your viewers and helping share information. And I think those shared experiences do encourage and educate and help and inform. So I think when it falls in that vein, I think it's beneficial. But other than that, and we would do silly stuff though too.
Right.
But I remember a couple of my news directors, the story's not about you guys, quit making it about you guys. So it was always a balance.
Right.
And I had to balance too our harder news shows. I would anchor the 5:30, I would fill in on the evening 6 and 11, and then I anchored an hour-long news product on 10, on Fox at 10 o'clock at night. And so I would have to, often I'm on from 4 to 5, it's live at 5 at 4, typically lighthearted, but on hard news days, it turned. It was more serious, it was more in-depth interviews, we had more time. I remember one of the shootings. I've covered several. We've had a mall, we've had a church, we've had several school shootings in my time at WVIR, and it was a breaking news situation. And I remember we got the first responders from the scene. They came and sat in our studio with us. They had just, I think that morning, they had been on the scene. And so it wasn't always light feature fluff.
Yeah.
You know, it was a show about the community, and it had the ability to breathe and move and pivot. And so that was fun. But I learned to, you know, one moment you have to be serious, the next you have to be lighthearted, but you also have to allow for spontaneity, because that was the best part of the show. So yeah, it's a lot, and it's a lot to be mindful of, as you guys know. I mean, you know, we also had someone in our ears, you know, a producer speaking to us through IFV. That was always interesting.
Yeah.
Especially when you're doing breaking news coverage and you're getting updates and you're trying to communicate and listen, and while you're being
Talking.
composed and talk. I'll never forget, we had a bus accident, a school bus accident, and I came back out of the commercial and I'm giving an update. Yes, it's bus number this many students, this route. My producer said, "That's great," but had started having this long conversation in my ear. What about moms and dads? But what can they do? How can they find their child? And, you know, so it was you learn to
different
juggle
level.
a lot, and you learn too when you're live on location. Narrow your focus when you're at a news conference, and sometimes that's live.
Yeah.
You know, asking your but you're not just there to ask. You're getting information. And I remember during the wildfires, 2016, in November 2016, in Gatlinburg, a lot of our younger staff, this is where you learn from each other, their tweet feed, that's how they were taking notes. And then they had like notes on their phone too. So it was just interesting. You know, the styles of covering and gathering information in the news field have certainly changed. We had the old notebook and pen and paper. So that's, and now, gosh, with streaming and everybody's got a phone, everybody can record, everybody can post, everybody can be live, everybody can document. But yeah, it's exciting, but there's some great responsibilities there too, especially if you wear the hat of a journalist.
And how would you say social media changes the way news is today? Do you think that hurts news, or do you think that people benefit from that?
I think the algorithms can hurt news, especially if you know you're only in your echo chamber.
Right.
You know, if you don't get out of that and be intentional about hearing different voices and having different news sources, that's my concern. I don't know, sometimes especially the way it's presented, the average user of social media, I'm not sure you can always tell if it's credible or not.
Right.
For instance, my parents, they will often call me, "Oh, you read this article." I said, "Mom, research the source.
Yeah.
Who published this?" Okay, go Google, and if it says it's, you know, leans left or right, it is not a source of journalism, or, you know, or news. I do think it can keep you in your narrow focus. I think just the algorithms and the way that the information is distributed, it's strategic. And I do sometimes think that limits open-mindedness and informative thought. And I don't know, I've always been intrigued by people that think differently than me. I'm fascinated. Doesn't mean you're going to change my opinion, but I like to know, like, where are you coming from? And I think we fail to ask the why.
Yeah.
Not, you know, what do you think? But why?
Right.
What led you to that? What experience did you have? Who have you met? And you can bring something else to the table, and you know what? It might open my mind. I might be like, oh, I never thought of it in those terms. And I think the more discussion we can have, I tell my kids all the time, we're more alike than we are different. But it's a very divisive time right now. Everybody's on their phone, on their social platforms. They're only following people that share their ideas. You know, so I think it's on all of us to be proactive and seek out information. And get the facts. You know, that was always my job. I would give you the information. I would give you the facts. I don't tell you how to think about it.
Right.
And I tell a lot of people all the time, if you were watching a news program and the person on the desk that you're listening to, if that person gives you an opinion, it is not a news show.
Right.
It is an opinionated editorial. But now I think it is hard for the general public, the average viewer. I think it's hard to know the difference. So I just think you have to be careful with the information that you take in, the information that you put out. I think you've got to challenge it. You've got to see if it's credible. And I think that's responsibility lies on all of us.
Yeah,
and it's going to be interesting. You know, you've got an election cycle coming up. You've got the war going on. It's two different wars.
Yeah.
So information is fast and instant and 24/7, and it's coming at you at all directions. And I think you really have to challenge yourself to be careful what you read, question what you read, and know the source of your information.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like false media is such like a prevalent thing now, and I will
Fake media, fake news.
Right, right. And I feel like with social media, as well as it has its downfalls, I think it is good to get those things right away. I mean, all the time on TikTok, you see a video of somebody at the event that's happening before the news station could even get that coverage.
We never had that before.
Right, it's like right there.
Yeah.
But with that can also become false media and lies and deceptions, and because you're not having that anchor report it, you're having a vlogger or somebody on social media.
You know, even the pictures and video, we would have to cross-check
Oh yeah,
every picture, and whatever the breaking news situation is. We're you know, in the news station, you're bombarded. People
Right.
sending this, people sending this, people sharing this from the scene. Okay, so we would really have to do Google searches and see if those pictures were legitimate.
And with AI and Photoshop, it's gone even crazier.
Do you guys use AI a lot? I'm curious.
Honestly, no.
Okay.
Like, I know there's like ChatGPT, like where you can ask questions and it'll help you with things, but I don't really, not really.
Personally, I do. I use it a lot just for inspiration, just because I wouldn't say, like, I'm creative, but when it comes to my writing, like, I say what I want to say and then I'm done.
Yeah.
And so ChatGPT just kind of helps me, like, have you thought about going in this angle? And then I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that. Let me research that.
I think it could be a great tool for that. I do, because I think you can, my concern with it, you know, is attribution. When you're putting in all these thoughts, you know, and like when I've just played around on some of the format, just curious, like giving it, you know, yeah, I think it can be helpful, it can be beneficial, and, you know, it's here.
Yeah.
So I think we all are going to have to learn, kind of like social media, how to embrace it. We need to educate ourselves about it. How does it work for us?
I mean, it goes back to your email thing, how that was scary.
Oh, think about it.
And now we got AI.
That's a great example. I mean, it wasn't that long ago,
Right.
you know, that things have changed, and you're going to see rapid change. That the news industry, even 5 years.
Yeah.
And I remember being, my first 2 stops, I shot and edited, and I'm so glad I did. And that is a big piece of advice. Learn every facet of news gathering, of journalism, stay up on current events, but get involved in your communities too, because that's where your great stories come from. But we, first 2 stops, shot and edited, and I remember coming to Knoxville, and there was this thought, oh, you know, pretty soon they're just going to have multimedia journalists. They're going to get rid of all the photographers. They're going to get rid of all the reporters. You're going to have to shoot, write, and edit. And we were like, oh, that'll never happen. And I remember when I first came to Channel 10, I bet we had 15 photographers. And I would argue that was our greatest strength. They were tremendous storytellers. They had great news judgment. They were the first on the scene. They often didn't need us to write.
Yeah.
They could put together content on their own. And maybe now they have, and the average news station, I don't know what the count is, but I mean, it's drastically decreased from that. And you do see more MMJ, even on the network levels. That's, you know, getting to the point, I think a lot of local stations are really focusing on MMJs. So but I remember having the conversation, oh, that never happened, that'll never happen. It's happening. I mean, you see like network, like I think, and Chris, I can't think of his name, some of your network anchors, when they go overseas, when they're doing coverage, war stories, whatnot, they're taking a camera themselves, they're shooting, they're editing, and I think that's what's exciting about this whole digital world that we live in. You know, the streaming opportunities, the YouTubes, the social media, but then all of the rogue. I mean, there are a lot of ways to get your information out
Right.
now, and I think that's exciting. Like podcasts, I didn't have a way to do this when I was your age. I mean, it's great, real
You had to
hands-on
turn
experience.
on your TV to find out what's going on in the
You
world.
know.
Now you just
Read the newspaper.
Yeah,
Have you all ever read a newspaper?
I've seen a newspaper.
Oh, really? Is it all on your
Yes.
phone?
Through it.
All
but,
on your
like,
phone, probably.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
grandparents would have it on the table all the time,
Uh-huh.
and I would, yes.
Yeah,
in the
but I mean, that's all. You know,
Right.
most people, we get our information from our phones, and
I mean, I can't remember the last time I probably picked up a newspaper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They got cool crosswords, so
yeah. I need to be doing more of those to keep my brain sharp.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but no, it's an exciting time. I will say that it may be scary. AI, looking at all the transitions. I think
Yeah.
it's just even like social media to stay current and to stay up on all the trends and the algorithms. And it's a moving target. Things
Yeah.
are constantly changing and evolving. And I think the key is you've got to be changing and evolving with it while staying true to who you are.
Yeah. It's what when I in my social media class they say that it's great, it's always evolving, but it's also terrible because it's always evolving. You don't know what it's gonna.
And it can be exhausting.
Yeah.
I mean, it can.
oh, it is.
And I mean, I'll tell you, for me, like social media, and when it gets to be a chore, I mean, it is necessary, but I think if you've got to have that balance.
You do.
You have to have that balance. And I always feel like people would ask me on the really hard news days, you know, how did you process the information? How did you mentally not heal? But Gallup wildfires, that was tough. But, you know, I came from a different time in news where thankfully now I think news stations are mindful of mental health and
Oh, yes.
mindful of the
Yes.
situations that their staff is in, surrounded by, covering. But we didn't have that. So I think what helped me the most, I would break away. Even on the worst news days, I would follow, but then I would have to have time where I just shut it down and I didn't, because now you can bombard the 24/7 news cycle. You can sit and just be glued to the TV,
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
constant information, information. So for me, mentally, I would just have to just step away, go do something fun, go outside, go be with your family, because the reality, even on your worst news day, life continues.
Yeah.
There's a baseball game, there's a football game, there's a theater performance, there's a practice, people are still working. And I think especially it's something, when you first get into the news business, there's such a tendency to be so consumed by it.
Right.
You know, and that's where we would say, okay, I want you to go home, go run, go be with your friends. And then also, that's where I think when you're involved in your community, regardless of where you go, that's one thing I wish I would have done a little more. My first 2 news stops, I was in Hopkinsville and Macon, Georgia, and I knew that it was a temporary stop for me, so I think it kept me from planting roots and really absorbing all that was around me, you know. So I think that's great, just to be in your community, and that's where a lot of your great stories, the great issues, that's where your good stories come from. You know, that
are.
and an ML viewer.
And they're personable because you're in the community and you're surrounded by.
And I always say, what do you enjoy doing? Like when we would have a new reporter, MMJ, photographer move to town, we would sit down in a conference room and say, hey, what do you like to do? All right, well, let's connect you with boom, boom, boom. There's this, this, and this. And then, you know, I'm really big on service. I'm really big on philanthropy. And that was another question. What do you like? What are your passions? What are you interested in as far as helping and serving? And I think that that was always important to us, and you know, certainly important when I was at WBIR and as a, you know, a station as a whole. Awesome.
So you mentioned a little bit just kind of having that work-life balance, but talk about being a mother and a journalist. How did you balance all of
Well,
that?
you know,
News is kinda
and let me preface,
nonstop.
I'm stepmom, and I only say that because my kids' mom and dad are super involved, you know, but I missed a lot, I will be honest, working night side. I worked a night side schedule, but I always had a tremendous example in Robin Wilthwaite. Robin Wilthwaite, 2 children, they have graduated from college. She worked nights her entire career. The way she managed as a mom and made sure her family came first and did her best to balance. I mean, what is balance? It doesn't exist, but you do the best that you can, especially as females. You know, we want to, sorry, no offense, but you have to have, you know, all these roles. But she would be up at, she'd get off the air, what, 11:30? Would go home, she was up at like 6, getting her kids ready, helping them transition to school. It's tough. It's hard. Men, women, working. You know, because my husband's super dad. He's involved in everything, and again, it's a balance. But you have to make that priority. For me, it was tough because working nights, you miss a lot. I remember Robin had to take off to go to a tennis match to see her son. I'd go to a little bit of the football game and then head back. So that's challenging, and there are a lot of examples right now on TV. They do it, and they do it well. Abby and Heather, Leslie, and I always say, especially when you talk about a working mom, I think more and more companies are realizing the skill set that brings to the workplace, and you know, being able to manage a lot at once, being masters of time management, because you only have a little bit of time to get things done. But
even when I was like there at the studio, like Abby and Raya, like it would be down to the seconds. I'm like, y'all are not in place, like you're stressing me out.
Got plenty of time.
Like, oh, we have a minute, we have
five,
plenty of time.
oh
I'm
yeah,
like,
that's fine.
What?
Hey, you would be shocked, but you can.
Yeah, a minute's a long time. And
Oh, it is. Well, now when people ask me to speak, I'm like, how long? And they're like, how about 20 minutes? 20 minutes, sure. I mean, we were just a minute and a half, 3 minutes. I could tape something right now, and it would either be a minute and a half or 3. That was just, my brain was wired. It still is wired to meet those time deadlines. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. Any profession, though, I think is hard. Being a parent, balancing work, home. I am realizing now that I've stepped away from news, what I did. I see what I missed, and I'm grateful for the opportunities to be around now. Does that mean no, I don't regret. I wouldn't change it. I loved my journey. I loved the people that I've met along the way, the experiences that I've had, the people I've interviewed, the big stories, the big coverage. And I got in TV kind of the downslide of TV's heyday. And we would go big. I mean, I remember we would have a road show with a satellite truck, and you'd have 3 or 4 photographers, you'd have 2 or 3 producers, you'd have 2 or 3 reporters, you'd have your anchor team. It was impressive. Now, toward the end, and then for bigger stories, you would have a few more people, but often for a live shot, it was myself and a photographer, and now MMJs oftentimes will run their own live shots. But yeah, I look back, I mean, I'm proud. I'm proud of the content that we shared. I'm proud of our coverage. I'm so thankful for the people that I worked with, just some top-notch professionals, talented. But one thing I'm trying to do, and I hope you all want to do this too, always remain curious. Be curious. Keep learning. And you're going to have to. I'm learning all these platforms. I'm trying to learn all this software. And you know, my generation, you know, no one taught us how to use Outlook and Google and all these different software, like the PowerPoint presentations and building your website. And we didn't have that.
And even like, you use Google as a verb. Like if you don't know something, you just Google it.
Oh, I Google it all the time. Thank God for YouTube. There's a video, a tutorial. I mean, you name the topic and you'll find it.
For sure. So you talked a lot about a balance, and
I don't know that I answered your question though.
No, you
no, I think you've answered it, and you've honestly answered it authentically, because like you said, there is no real balance. And that's what I want to ask is, when you have the time off, how do you turn off that journalist brain? Because I feel like as journalists, we're just constantly going, and we're always looking for a story.
Step away from your phone.
But even from from that, like.
But see, remember, I'm a different generation too. I think it's
Right.
easier for me to put the phone down, and I also have a 17 and a 15-year-old, and I'm trying to model. You know, put your phone down, turn it off, look around you. We took a trip to California, and there's this beautiful scenery flying by, and they're doing this. We're walking down the street, and they're doing this. You're missing what's happening around you.
Right.
And as a journalist, that's important.
Right.
Look around you. Be intentional.
And those stories are there.
They're all around you. And also, I think it's important. I always will tell people, gloom and doom news is so harsh. It is. It's happening. It's real. But there's also good news happening all the time. There is. It's all around you.
There is.
It's the bad news gets the coverage, and it should. But I think that's how I always process it. You know, switch your perspective sometimes too. Yes, that's a bad story. It's a bad news day. It is a horrific event that has happened to the family, to our community. It is awful. But then to keep in mind that there are so many good things each day, so many good people. So you have to be intentional about keeping that balance in your mind.
Right.
I have a very strong faith, so that helps me. And you know, I've interviewed so many people, and I see it. You know, I think with my shift and what I'm doing, I'm trying to be intentional. I'm trying to be intentional with my conversations. I'm trying to be intentional with what I fill my mind with, what I focus on. I'm trying to be aware. I really be aware. Like what's around you? We're in such a hurry. We miss so much.
Right.
Even just our daily walk from here, from your dorm or from your apartment, just here. Just be mindful, be aware, and take the time for people. It matters. And as a journalist, to learn the listening part, we focus so much on writing and editing and shooting. Be a good listener. And that's important. You know, I think about with news conferences, information's coming in. You better be able to hear that and then ask the appropriate follow-up question. So, I mean, it is a skill set, but even in our daily conversations with people.
Right.
But yeah, you know, I mean, news is hard. It is. The subject is hard. And you just have to make sure your mental health is a priority, and you have to do things that refuel you, that make you happy. You have to shift your focus at times, you know, the blessings around you. But yeah, that's important when you're balancing really hard news days. And, you know, for me, come home from a dinner, you know, it's
Right. Life goes on.
life goes
goes
on.
on,
Yeah, life goes on. But yeah, I think it's something that everybody struggles with, and you know, you should feel. I think if you're in this business and you're desensitized and these hard things don't affect you, I think that's an issue.
Yeah.
Now, you do. It's, you know, I equate it to kind of like a doctor, like an ER staff. I mean, think of what they process, think of what they see. They have a
Right.
job to do. It's an important job. It's an important job that journalists have. They are documenting, they are questioning, they are presenting information, they are informing community. All of these things are important, but it's just kind of like that clinical. I remember 9/11. I was working in Macon, Georgia, 9/11. I saw the news cross TV stations. I'm watching all the networks. Being a news reporter, journalist, pick up the phone, say, all right, I'm coming in. It's 9:30. I work night side, but I knew I was needed. So I get to the station. My station manager said, go to the emergency management meeting, go cover it. We were somewhat under, not risk, but So there was tight security measures. Everybody was on high alert. And I remember I go to the emergency management meeting. This was like at 10. I come back. I immediately walk in the newsroom, sit on a stool, and I'm on camera. And then, it was the whole day. You're just going. You're not really thinking. You're just going.
Right. Your emotions are put to the side.
You cannot focus. You have to kind of compartmentalize and kind of lock that in a file cabinet. And then I finally got home, I think at like 2 a.m., 2 or 3. I sat on my couch and I just cried. Because you have to allow yourself to feel. You have to release that emotion.
You do.
You can't bottle it. You can't carry it with you. You have to find your outlet and your way to release and then recharge and rest at some point, which is also hard.
It's hard, yeah.
In news. But it's fun. I wouldn't change my journey at all. It's exciting. Every day was different. I met so many people. I've told so many stories, and I've learned so much along the way, and I hope to continue doing so.
Yeah, I've definitely learned a lot today.
Well, I hope. I know I can,
you'll continue
I can
on doing it.
That's a wrap for this week's episode of Living on Rocky Top.
I'm Ali Rosa.
And I'm Karsten Hoagland, and we'll see you next time.